Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm ready to do my full review on these three knives, which is a little different for me. It's rare that you see me use three knives at once, but these are the same knife. These were loaned to me by my buddy Freak Show EDC, whose Instagram will be linked down below. Really cool dude. He offers sharpening services for people who don't know how to or don't want to sharpen their own knives, or maybe you've got one that's a little higher end than you're comfortable sharpening. Whatever the case may be, he does really good sharpening. I can say that now because I've held several knives that he has sharpened, and they're fantastic edges that he puts on. Just a really cool dude. And after I had reviewed the Monterey Bay Knives EWC, he asked if I wanted to check out the EWC, and I said yes. I was curious about it. I really liked the EWC in a lot of ways. Just a cool little Ray Laconico designed, solid little EDC knife, right? And I think that was the first Monterey Bay Knives knife that I'd ever reviewed. I've still never owned one personally, which is kind of crazy. I like a lot of the stuff that they do, so I'm sure that'll happen soon. But anyways, I said yes to checking these out, and these are really, really similar to the EZC, to be fair. If you look at them when they're open, you would probably think that this is an EZC. In fact, I bet a lot of people confuse the two of them. The only giveaway when this knife is open that it's not an EZC is that there's no flipper tab right here. So because of it being a dual detent little top flipper thing, the flipper tab is up here, which is different. So when I reviewed the EZC, trying to think back on it, there were a couple of things that I loved about that knife. Primarily, they were the size and weight made it a breeze to carry. I wished it had had a deep carry clip, because then it would have been like ultimate good secondary knife, phenomenal carry. So the size and weight and profile was very comfortable in pocket and was good ergonomically in hand. And the action was super snappy, a lot of fun, just a really good flipper. And yeah, the blade shape worked. It was a good cutter. It was a nice flat grind. Like, there was a lot about that knife that was really good. And so this has so much of the same properties. It's going to be the same profile, the same pocket clip. Again, I wish we had a deep carry clip. I think that would be better for this knife, but I get it. This is a handsome looking pocket clip. It's functional. It works. Not everybody wants their knife to carry deep anyways, so that works, right? This one doesn't have a lock mechanism inside because it's non-locking, so internally it's going to be a little bit different. But if you look inside, we do have on the lock side, there is a liner, and that has a little bit of a bar on it, which is just providing some tension for the detents, or detent. I haven't pulled it apart to see how it looks internally. I don't know whether one or both detents are on that same bar, but there is a nested liner on the clip side of the knife, right? The show side is just carbon fiber. On this one, just raindrop carbon. On this one, which I think is the coolest looking handle material. And then this one in micarta, which for some reason, I haven't even carried this one, if I'm being totally honest. I just like the weight of the carbon ones a little bit better. Although side by side, honestly, I'm not noticing a difference. They feel the same. In my head, these were lighter. I don't know. I'm usually a sucker for micarta. This came out of the box looking like chalky white. And I think that's just from in shipping. It kind of dried out a little bit. I don't know. This isn't micarta that excites me. I'd be willing to bet if I took some mineral oil and rubbed it into this, it'd probably look fantastic. But this isn't my knife. I'm not going to oil someone else's micarta, and it hasn't spoken to me like micarta often does. Plus, the action on this one is it's less good than the others. Still fine, but this one's, to me, kind of the run to the litter, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to set this one to the side and talk about these. In fact, why don't I just pick one to hold? I think I'm trying to remember which one of these I liked the best. They all feel slightly different, just the way that they're dialed. This one. Okay, so the raindrop carbon one, not only do I think looks the best, but I think it feels the best. There we go. Yeah, so construction, it's very similar to the EZC. It's just different in the sense that instead of having a liner lock, it has a liner in there that's got an extra detent on it. And the way a dual detent knife works is basically there's a detent that's holding it closed, right? So it's not going to just wobble out of there. So I have to break past the detent like I would on a normal flipper or otherwise to deploy it. And then once it's open, instead of being held open by a lock, it's held open by another detent. So the same amount of pressure basically that was used to hold it closed is now what's holding it open. So if I press on it now, it just like opening it, it's the same type of thing, except one way opens and one way closes. I guess, yeah, let's go down the weeds real quick about this type of lock mechanism or lack thereof. So every knife that I carry is a locking knife unless it's a fixed blade. I'm not into slip joints, never really have been. I'll probably give another one a shot here relatively soon. I've given one a shot relatively recently, however, like the Artisan Biome, which is a Mallory design I tried. It's fine. I don't think that there's like an inherent danger in carrying a non-locking knife if you're using it to do things that non-locking knives are designed to do. If you're cutting forward through material, like slicing through stuff, right? If you're not pressing on the spine while you're cutting, that could be bad if you do that with a non-locking knife. Pretty easy to close it on yourself. But if you're holding it in a hammer grip and you're sliding it through cardboard or whatever it may be, there's no danger there. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And for most of the tasks that most people do in their everyday lives, you don't need a locking knife. That said, I prefer drastically for my knives to lock. I don't personally see a point in having a knife that doesn't lock when there are so many fantastic locking knives that can just, in my opinion, do more, that don't have the inherent limitations of a non-locking knife. So I feel like this is a little strange to me. And this is becoming more and more of a thing. MBK on this model is not the only person to be doing a dual detent non-locking knife. Civivi now has one. I've seen We do at least one or two. I think one of the Isham knives that they did was that way. It's like I'm starting to see it sprinkled out. People are doing these non-locking dual detent, whether it's a flipper or otherwise. And I think part of the popularity, if I had to guess, is just because it's new and different. And people with a diverse collection, it's fun to get something that's new and different, that functions a different way than the other knives you have. It's also pretty fun, or can be, when you kind of get into a rhythm to just back and forth. See, I don't have the easiest time with it, which I'm a fidgeter, so I get if it's fun to fidget with, fun to kind of master it, cool. It's a different experience to have with a knife. I don't see in my mind that many like slip joint guys, however, would really like this because it still feels really different from a slip joint. And I don't see in my head that many people who are like the use your stuff crowd would really flock to this compared to locking knives. So I think it's like kind of this weird middle ground where, I don't know, maybe let me know in the comments, try not to be ridiculous about it, but if you see a place where these fit that I'm missing, because in my head, it's kind of a novelty. It's a lock mechanism for the sake of having a different lock mechanism. But to me, this isn't more fun than a button lock, which can be super fun on knives like the Protect Malibu, or even a liner lock with a really nice detent and on bearings, and that can be fun to deploy and it'll drop in a fun way, or a frame lock. Same can be, it can be fun to play with those knives. Bolster locks are one of my favorites because they're kind of a happy medium between the two. I love compression locks. Like Axis style locks can be a lot of fun. And all of those lock the knife open, and they still, oftentimes, depending on their construction, will have a detent that holds it closed. And a detent is very important. But I just don't see, beyond this being different, what the argument for it is. And I don't know. I don't think it's for me. I think it's fun for a minute. And maybe on a knife like the Civivi, which is kind of at the budget end of the spectrum, to have one of these in my collection that's kind of inexpensive could be kind of fun, because then it's just to have that lock type in my collection. But a nicer knife like this, I don't really get it. I haven't found that spending time with it makes me understand. In fact, when I've carried these, I've carried them a bunch of times now. I've had these in my possession like a month. So between this one and this one, I've carried them, I don't know, probably over 10 times. And when I've gone to pull them out to use them for a cutting task, which I've been pretty gentle with them. They're loaners, they're not mine. I haven't been beating on these knives, although he did give me permission to carry them and use them. So I've done cardboard opening packages and some internal packaging bits, secondary EDC knife type of stuff for me. They're fine. They cut well. They have all the advantages of the EZC in terms of this blade profile. It's a nice distal tapered blade. That's a full flat grind. So it's got a very nice tip on it, and it slices well. Like, it's a good blade, but I prefer it on the EZC where it locks, and I don't have to worry about, like, I like to put my thumb pretty far forward on the blade when I'm cutting. And if I'm pressing through something or whatever it may be, once I finish that cut and there's no more resistance down onto the blade this way, then all of a sudden I can easily just pop this forward. So I guess part of it's what I'm used to. Maybe if you're really used to like non-locking knives, then that won't bother you, and this will feel like a fun jump into the future for you, because still non-locking, and for some reason you prefer that, but it's a flipper and it's on bearings, and like, I don't know, this is like it exists in this weird space in my mind where usually I feel like I kind of get knives, and on this I just genuinely don't. Because with the EZC, especially since I had it right before this, I liked the flipping action on that one more. I felt like that one was more fun to flip. And then you have to unlock it, right? Press the liner lock over, and then you bring it past the detent, and then it dropped pretty well. It was nice and smooth coming down. So I guess maybe closing it wasn't as fun as being able to just push. Oh, see, but half the time I mess this up. To just push, and then it closes all the way, in theory. Yeah, I don't know. These are weird to me. So I guess where I'll leave this, I think what would make the most sense is this is the EZC without a locking blade. The profile is the same. The clip is the same. It functionally, other than being a locking knife, is pretty much identical. I prefer the EZC because I prefer locking knives. For the sake of time, I've got quite a few videos to film tonight. I'm really not feeling like diving deep into the intricacies of this knife when it's basically the same as the EZC. I'll just say, if you want to know about its cutting performance and ergos and carryability and hear me talk about those things in detail, watch the EZC full review. And then think for yourself, is it important to me to have a knife that locks open? Or do I think it's exciting to maybe try something like this? And it's fair if you do. I genuinely do not mean to belittle anybody who's into this type of knife. Like, if that's your flavor, go for it. This is a nice knife. This is built well. The tolerances are nice. Everything feels good about it. It feels as nice as the EZC did, which I raved about. I liked that knife. It's just functionally, it's got that difference. So if that's intriguing to you, or for some reason you like that, and please tell me if there's a reason why you do and why it is exciting to you. I'm curious about it. Then maybe this is the version for you. But the one that I would recommend based on my preferences and based on the capabilities I see the knife having inherently because of that structural difference, obviously I recommend the EZC. I don't see a disadvantage to having it lock. I do think it would be cool if maybe, I guess it would probably mess up the geometry of the lock face on it, but I like the placement that this flipper tab is up here, kind of half on top, half toward the back. It's not a front flipper. It's kind of a top flipper, kind of a traditional flipper. It's like in this fun spot there. I think that would be cool, something like that on an EZC. Like, but this one doesn't lock. That's really what it keeps on coming back to, and that's what it's going to keep coming back to. So I recommend the EZC. These are nice. If this gets you excited that it does these things and doesn't lock, this is a great option for you. But to me, it's not what I would pick. It's just not. And I guess that's probably, oh, this is really difficult to hold these all three, isn't it? Can I do it? We'll see. Anyway, this has been the Monterey Bay Knives, or MBK EWC. And they're interesting, they're different, they're well made, they're nice knives. They're not for me. They did also just come out with basically this type of thing, another Laconico design, but like a swayback pattern with kind of a, I think the blade is even a little bit of a hawksbill, and it's got like a cool swedge thing on it. Those look awesome. Again, if they come out with that one as a flipper that locks instead of a dual detent non-locking knife, then I'll probably be really interested in it. But they came at the right time, because if I hadn't borrowed these right now and I had just seen that other design come out, I probably would have bought one. And now I know that dual detent knives don't do much for me. So anyways, thank you again to Freak Show EDC. Again, he will be linked down below. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching. Sorry, this was a bit of a different one, I suppose. But it's been fun to sort my thoughts out on the subject a little bit. Anyway, thank you. I'll see you on the next one.